Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Darren, and in today's video I want to talk a little bit about some of the changes Blizzard is talking about regarding Roll the Bones. And this is something new as a community can talk. And when I say I'm going to make these kind of videos where I'm like, hey guys, let's get to work, let's get on forums, let's speak our minds. I really do mean let's speak our minds. I know that Blizzard has had their ups and downs, and with every single patch, with buffs and nerfs, I do speak out my opinions. But when I do say that, hey, what if Blizzard is listening? There's a reason why the buff that's going to be coming out in the future was a trait for your artifact weapon in patch 7.2, loaded dice, which is literally taken as an idea from the forums being added into the game. That's why I say keep speaking your minds. If Blizzard actually is going to take a piece of an idea from the forums and add it into the game, there you go. You guys can actually make a change when it comes to playing an Outlaw Rogue. So I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that I have, but let's get on to the actual news. So Blizzard is talking a little bit about patch 7.2 and there are some changes coming out. This one is going to be about Roll the Bones. Let me get this out of the way. If you're somebody who just hates Roll the Bones and is not going to play it, and you're going to play Slice and Dice, the only piece of information you need to know is that the loaded dice buff for your weapon is going to work with Slice and Dice in some way or another. They're not sure, but it should be in the next PTR build, and I'll be checking it out as soon as it comes out. So if you came here and you don't care about Roll the Bones, just go ahead and leave the video and then you be on your day. So I'll be checking out the buff. But if you're here for the actual Outlaw Rogue buffs, let's get to the topic. So what they want to do is they want to change up the buffs a little bit. They noticed that True Bearing is one of the better buffs currently. In the past, it was the Shark Infested Waters buff, which is the crit buff, that was really good at the very beginning of the game. But at the very beginning of the game, Shark Infested Waters was a 50% crit chance, and that was before they changed up a little bit the secondary stats of all of your stats. So that buff was really good. Before that was Buried Treasure, which increased your energy regeneration by like 40% and maybe 50%. I'm pretty sure it was 40, but they toned it down to 25. Now buffs like these might actually get buffed a little bit in the upcoming patch. They're talking about changing it because right now, out of any buffs, in most cases you want to reroll out of one buff. In most cases, the only buff you actually want to keep is True Bearing, which gives you the cooldown reduction. They nerfed True Bearing for defenses, so you can't use Cloak, you can't use Blind, you can't use Repost faster because of True Bearing, but it still allows Outlaw Rogues in PvE and PvP environments to get ahead, which is great. For PvP environments, it allows you to get your cooldowns back together, allows you to stun enemies a lot more often so you have a lot more control, allows you to use grapple and hook a lot more often, even if it actually doesn't offer you any other buffs, except for the fact that when you spend comp points, you get abilities back faster. So this buff alone is really good. And in PvE, this is the kind of buff that you keep. Every other buff you reroll out of, but if you get True Bearing for a full duration, it doesn't give you crit, it doesn't give you energy regen, it doesn't give you attack speed, but it does give you a shitload more of cooldown reduction for all your abilities. So you can get into Adrenaline Rush faster, you can get vanishes off faster, you can get all your massive abilities faster. It'd be kind of cool if they comboed your artifact weapon with it, but that's not gonna happen anytime soon. But it's a really good buff. And what Blizzard is thinking is to rework some of the other buffs, even change the percentages of the buffs that you get when you roll. And I'll have, again, all the links down in the description below from MMO Champion, which is your trusted source, which is kind of where I go to. Sometimes WoW has it, sometimes MMO Champion has it, but it's good that we have these kind of websites. And this is just a post from one of the blues. Now, I want to talk a bit about this because this is actually kind of exciting, especially for an Outlaw Rogue. It's great for PvE, which is basically what they're looking at, but it translates really well into PvP. See, as I said earlier, they made all the changes to your buffs in terms of nerfing the shark buff and nerfing the energy regen buff because of the stats that they had. The secondary stats were just way too good. And ever since they did a little bit of changes to the secondary stats after patch 7.15 and 7.1, the whole mechanic of buffs is a little bit different. It's a little bit off. It's not the same. So they might be seeing some buffs for our crit buff, for our attack speed buff. Broadside is pretty good actually. But right now, currently, let's say for PvE, which is mostly what Blizzard are looking at, there's only a few combination of buffs that are really good. True Bearing and anything else is a really good buff. Outside of that, the only other one that actually gives you the most damage increase is the crit buff and broadside, which is common point generation. Crit buff and common point generation is literally ultimately the best buffs, the best combination of buffs for a 2 buff. And then there's a 3 buff, which is basically just about anything can work there. And there's a 6 buff, which is the legendary one. But if they are thinking about reworking single buffs, this is good. Because let's say for PvE, you get a 1 roll buff. Wouldn't it be nice if every single buff didn't make you lose, like, what is it, 50k DPS or 20k or 40k? It just didn't make you lose a drastic amount of DPS. Sure, it'd be fine if it went down slowly, and then you get good buffs, and then you slowly caught up. But it would be nice if, like, you get 1 buff, you drop, and you get 2 buffs, you're rising. You get 1 buff, you're dropping, and you kind of stayed more in the average range, more or less. And that'd be good for PvE, because then it would feel like, oh, this is less RNG. It's more like about changing your playstyle, because it's dynamic, rather than, oh, do I get a good roll? No, I don't. Roll again. Do I get a good roll? No, I don't. Roll again. And it's kind of like turns into a game of lottery, and you can't even tell if you're playing World of Warcraft or Hearthstone at this point. But it would be really cool if every single buff worked for you in one way or another. And if the effect value, when you get 2 buffs and 3 buffs, didn't quite range you up as high, and 1 buff didn't drop you down as low. And of course, they should keep 6 buffs as something legendary, something exciting and amazing. And I'm hoping they keep that in 3 buffs, of course. But this is really good for PvE, because in PvE, they have gear that they're trying to consider. They have agility they're trying to consider. Secondary stats they're trying to consider. Everything. They're considering a lot more parts of the game. But this translates really well into PvP. Because in PvP, I feel like when you get bad buffs back to back to back, it can be even more detrimental than in PvE environments. In PvE, let's say you get 1 buff back to back to back, you're just losing some DPS. In PvP, if you get 1 terrible buff back to back to back, that can literally mean an arena game where you need to set up right now. That could be a BG where you need the right buff to put some counter pressure and maybe even play defensive. You only get like a few rolls without having to burn any massive cooldowns. And I think that'll be really, really good if they buff the 1 buff capabilities, and if that worked well for PvP. Because if it works well for PvE, chances are it translates well for PvP, and then Outlaw Rogues will generally be happier. Because in the opener, you will be able to mark for death, roll the bones, get a buff, and in most cases you can just stay with this buff. And for the most part, you just need to maintain a buff. If you have the capability to reroll, see what you get else, you may, but you don't have to keep rerolling. And that would be kind of cool if you achieved that. If you Outlaw Rogues were at a place where you didn't have to keep rerolling. You could for a maybe better buff, but you didn't have to keep rerolling. And I think that'd be exciting. And this is good that Blizzard is talking about roll the bones and the RNG and the buffs and the fact that they're thinking about the singular buffs. So that's what I'm gonna leave you guys off with, the message of the day. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments below. What do you think about these changes that are coming out to roll the bones? If you have any ideas of your own, please feel free to post them in the comments below. And please, if you have any strong feelings, do take them to the forums, because Blizzard devs, believe it or not, are sometimes maybe listening to the community. And if you have enough support behind your thought, then they might even implement it. And that's exciting, because if they got loaded dice in the game and they made it work with slice and dice, or gonna make it work with slice and dice, well then I think just about anything is possible. So go out, be an activist for rogues. If you want to make changes happen. You can't just sit back and say, oh man, this game sucks, oh the devs suck, oh rogues suck. Go out and make a change. Even though you don't really have to go out, just sit at home, get on a forum. You'll be doing a lot of rogues a service. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.